Hey guys, LazyMan here. Hey, I went ahead and finished up the AMD build, and before I go ahead and ship this off to the client, I thought I'd show you guys how it turned out. So anyway, to refresh your memory on the specs, first off we started off with the Antec P182 case, and then we used the AMD Phenom 2 Black Edition 1090 CPU, which we mounted on the Crosshair IV Formula motherboard by Asus. And then for the GPU, the client decided to go with the Sapphire Toxic 5850, and we installed 4 gigabytes of Corsair Dominator RAM, and I have the timing set at 88824. So anyway, for the full spec list, go ahead and check the more info, and let's go ahead and take a look at this a little bit closer. Alright, taking a look behind the front panel here, you can see we installed the Sentry LX fan controller. And then below that is the Samsung DVD burner. And then below that is the LG Blu-ray player. And you can see that took up all 4 of the 5 1/4 slots. And then below that are 2 ventilation panels for the 220 millimeter fans behind it. And then what you do is you just push on the front here, and you can open the door and you have access to the filters. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. Alright guys, taking a look at the inside here. You know, it turned out pretty good with what I had to work with. So we'll just pan around and we'll take a look at it. So anyway, starting down here on the bottom, you can see I went ahead and installed the hard drives here in the bottom cage. And originally we thought we were going to have to remove this upper cage here to allow room for the GPU. And what I decided to do was actually remove the hardware that held the hard drives in, and then actually use this as a cavity to run my cables through. Of course, we had to drill a couple holes in the back of the cage there, but it worked out pretty good, because now instead of the cables, you know, being conflicting with anything here, you know, they run right through there and through the back, and you know, it worked out pretty good. So if we go up here to the top and we look up here in the corner there, I had to go ahead and make a hole there for the 120 millimeter fan. And of course I could have ran it through the existing opening, but to minimize the cable running across the motherboard tray, I decided to go ahead and, you know, drill a hole there. Then for the 8-pin, as you can see, that runs through the existing opening there. And then again for the 120 millimeter fan here up on top, and the 2 Noctua fans on the cooler. I could have used, you know, one of the openings on either side, but again, I thought it would be neater if I just went ahead and drilled another hole and ran those 3 cables through there. And then coming through this one here, those are the thermal sensors. And then I ran those down alongside the memory there. And then they go to their respective areas. One goes to the CPU, one to the north bridge. I have one going to the GPU, and one down to the hard drive down at the bottom, and then the first thermal probe I have here up on top, and we're just using that for, you know, case temperature. And then if we take a look at the fan controller here, you can see I've got everything tied up pretty nice, and that was a little more difficult than it looks. You know, I could have just bundled all the excess cables up and, you know, stuck them in the back there, but you know, it definitely looks a lot neater, you know, if you bundle them up. But what you have to do is actually install it first, route all your cables to where they're going to go, find out how much is extra on each individual cable, pull it back out, and then bundle it up, and then reinstall it. And you know, hopefully you measured correctly, and or you route the same way you initially assumed you were going to route, and the cables reach. But you know, that turned out pretty good. And then if we look at the optical for the optical drives here, we tuck those pretty tight there. What I had to do with the SATA cable, which most of us do, is I cut in a extra SATA power connector there to minimize the length of the cable, and then I ran them down through here, and then they go through one of the openings here on the hard drive cage, along with the PCI Express cables. For the 24 pin, it was pretty simple. Just comes off the motherboard, goes through an existing hole that they already have there. Then when we get down here, these are the front panel connectors right here. And Antec didn't design this very well. What you're supposed to do is those cables come down, and then right above here, where this black plastic is, they're supposed to come across and then come down and then route into their perspective spots. And even though there wasn't going to be any mods on this case, other than installing these case feet here at the bottom, which actually works pretty good. Let me just for a moment show you this. What you do is you pull this out. Right now it's locked so it doesn't roll, but you just pull this out. If I can get it out. And actually you got to push down and then pull it out all the way, and then the wheels will roll. And then to lock it, you just push this back in. So that's a set of wheels from Leon Lee, and they're pretty nice. So anyway, as I was saying, there wasn't going to be any mods, and drilling the holes was something I chose to do on my own. One, because when I first started running the cables, again, the front panel connectors came across here, ran down, and it was ugly. So initially what I did, and we'll see this when I open up the back of it, but I had to drill a hole way back here, bring the front panel connectors down, and bring it down to this level here. As you can see, there's a piece of metal right in here. Well, there's no opening to bring those cables down. So I brought those cables down, and then down underneath here, and originally I brought them up through here, all of them, and then I ran them to their perspective spots. And again, I wasn't happy with that, and I went ahead and filmed a little bit of that, so go ahead and take a look at this video real quick. So anyway, after contemplating whether I just leave it like that, and I know there's no window on this case, but I just have a need to make this, all my builds, just to do the best I possibly can. And so I didn't like the way the cables were. I didn't like how that AC sound connector was hanging off to the side there. So anyway, I went ahead and drilled this hole back here, to route the front panel audio connection and the FireWire port right there. That's USB, which I did again use this opening here. And then for the front panel connectors, your power reset, hard drive LEDs, whatnot, I ran and I drilled a hole there, ran them up right there. So to me, maybe it's a little overkill, but to me it just makes it a lot nicer and neater. And then I guess what this is, you undo this drum screw here, and this slides back, and then you have this opening here, and you have this opening here. I guess they intended for you to run your power supply and run all your cables up through here, or the ones that you needed to make connections. Because as we take a look at the back here, you will see you're very limited where you can put the cables. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. Alright guys, taking a look at the back here, you can see that all the cables are routed pretty neatly. And anyway, let's just start right here, and so I can show you what I was talking about, the front panel connectors. So they come down from the top, and you're supposed to run them right across here and then to the front and then tie them in. So initially I didn't like that, as you saw, so I went ahead and drilled this hole, ran all the cables down through here, was able to bring them down to this level here, bring them across, bring them down under here, and then underneath, you know, that ledge in the front side, and bring them up to the motherboard. So as you can see, the opening right here, from here to here, is the only space you have to bring all your connectors from the power supply to their perspective areas. I'm sure you can make this a little bit larger by cutting some of this out or cutting some of that out, but that will weaken the integrity of this, the motherboard tray. So just shy of doing that, you know, I tried to find other alternatives. I knew I could fit quite a bit through there if I kept them nice and neat and kept them all tied together. So it worked out pretty good. But one thing you have to do, or at least I had to do, is, for instance, like, you get your hard drives down here, and as you can see, I have my hard drives coming out. I have the excess looped around here, but you know, they need to tie into the power supply. And this panel here that holds the 120mm fan at the bottom did not have a hole here, which doesn't make sense to me. Antec could have put a hole there, would have made it easy to run your cables through there, and then they're hidden. Because if not, what you would have to do is the power cables and the SATA cables would come through here, or come out here, come up, come through one of these holes here, and then either tie into the SATA connectors here, and then come back down to tie into the power supply. Because there's no way to go from here to here unless you eliminate the fan, or you come up through the top and then back down through the top. So a quick easy fix for that was to go ahead and make a slot hole here, and then I was able to run the cables through there, and it turned out really nice. So then what else did we do here? Let's see, you know, all our power connectors come up, the SATA cables go around here. I got them tied down with a cable clamp. These other ones here are the PCI Express cables. They go through the hole here, and you can see these two holes here that I made. You know, I made them oversized because there's no reason why to minimize how small you need to make them. And I was crossed between either going small, where I could actually put a grommet on it, or going larger, where I could put some U-channel. And I chose the later, to go ahead and make larger holes and you know, use some U-channel. So let's see, looking up here, most of the cables for the fan controller are coming out of this hole here, and most of them are ran up under this ledge here, and tying into these three, and then tying into that one there. And then this is the power connector for the fan controller, which I ran down, you know, brought it straight down here, and then tied it in right there. The fan for the fan down at the bottom, just ran it through this zipped, or through this cable anchor, brought this down. I don't know if you can see in there, but brought it inside there, ran the excess there and tied it in there, and then the last one runs down all the way along the side here. There's just enough opening right there where you can stick that through there, run it down, and then put the connector there. Now you've got to be careful how much stuff you put in between this outside lip and the inside, because the panel has these clips that are about 3 inches wide. So there's like one here, there's one here, and there's one down here. So as long as you avoid those areas, you know, you can stick stuff in there. So I think that's about it. So again, I mean, it's not probably the greatest, But it did take a few, it took me a lot more than a few hours, let me just be honest. It probably took a good 2.5 days for me to do this. Because what you have to do is, you can see, again, all these cable clamps that I used, these holes have to be drilled, they've got to be tapped. So you can kind of get an idea where you're going to put your cabling and drill the holes and tap them, but I guarantee it, no matter how much you pre-think it, how much you lay everything out, when you go to actually do it, you're going to realize, oh shit, I need one there, I need one there. And sometimes you can get away with it by utilizing ones that are already in place or using some other kind of attachment. But in some cases, you need to strip everything back down, take it back in the garage, drill a hole, tap it, and bring it back in and start all over. So, it takes me quite a bit of time to actually, there wasn't a whole lot on this case, but because of the limited access that I had to run the cables, it was a step-by-step process. But in the long run, it turns out really nice, and I think the client's going to be happy with it, and I'm happy with it, and I guess that's all that matters. So anyway, this is LazyMan, and we'll be talking to you again.